Is the Earth undergoing a magnetic pole flip or geomagnetic excursion? The answer to that question is yes. So, what will that mean for humanity? I'll break this all down in this 2026 psychic forecast, giving you the science, combining science and intuition, and letting you know what I feel is going to happen and what we need to do to prepare. Hi, Adam of the Medium channel here. And to be clear, this is not doom and gloom, but do I believe that a polar flip or a polar excursion is imminent? Yes, I do, and I'll explain why. But the idea is to be prepared, to be aware, but don't be scared. We will have to adapt to changes as humanity and the Earth always has. And that's the bottom line. So, through observation, through research, and through intuition, here's a 2026 psychic forecast on what's likely to happen with the progression of the current polar shift that's going on the planet. So we'll talk about what that means, what the dynamics at play are, what that's likely to mean for life on Earth, and what we can do to prepare. So we'll start out with some signs. One sign is that for every 10 years, we're losing about 5% of the magnetic field here on Earth. And over the last 3,000 years, we've lost about 30% of the magnetic field. This is leading to stronger auroras. There's less protection from the sun's radiation as a result of that. Should we be worried about that? No. The reason being is that if we take the average, and I have to peek at my notes, I think it's over the last 5 million years. So if we average it out, and there's ways that science can measure this through various means, the Earth's magnetic field is currently twice the strength of the average over the last 5 million years. So we've gone through ups and downs for a long time now. So other signs of shifting poles on the Earth is that the South Atlantic Anomaly, that's a magnetic hole in the South Atlantic into South America, that's so much that the Hubble telescope's got to turn off some of its sensors, and satellites have to provide extra shielding when they're passing through that area. So that's very significant. And we're also seeing the poles migrating. So it's been migrating out of Canada across the latitudinal North Pole, and it's migrating towards Siberia, and that's happening faster. So that's another sign. We're seeing some reemergence of Antarctic ice during a time when the planet should be warming based on current CO2 levels and other factors. Yet we're starting to see the signs that the planet might be cooling. We're also seeing changes in the ocean currents, and when ocean currents change, climate changes significantly. So what is a polar flip or geomagnetic excursion in the first place? To answer that, it's helpful to understand what creates the Earth's magnetic fields in the first place. And based upon all we know, that is created by the Earth's molten iron magnetic core, which is only about 1,800 feet below the surface, and it's 1,500 miles in diameter, and it's hotter, well, not hotter, but close to the temperature of the surface of the sun hot. And it's molten. And what's iron? Iron is magnetic in nature, and the core spins, but it's not completely spherical, so it's not completely symmetrical. So it creates this gyro effect, like a spinning top. Sometimes it wobbles, and those wobbles create perturbations in the Earth's magnetic field. And also, there's what's called the Coriolis force, based on the fact that the Earth is round and the core is round. So that will help to create the magnetic fields in a certain way, in a certain pattern or alignment that creates the dipoles or the North or South Pole. So I'm checking my notes, making sure I'm not missing something. And yes, and also this creates what's called the Van Allen belts, which are basically the magnetic belts around the Earth that help deflect the solar winds and solar radiation that help protect the Earth. So are polar flips and excursions normal? Yes, they are normal. According to science, there have been 183 pole flips in the last 83 million years. That's an average of one flip every 450 years. Now, the Earth has not undergone a pole flip in 780,000 years. So you might think that we're way overdue, and according to averages, we are. But understand that these are not at regular intervals. Sometimes it could be under 100,000 years between pole flips, other times millions of years. So there's a lot of forces at play. So it's not a regular thing at all. So how do scientists even know all this stuff? Well, the secret is in the rocks. And the Native American people used to call the rocks the record keepers because within the rocks, there's millions of years of history. It's stored energetically. Its clues are there if you know how to look. And scientists observe volcanic rocks, and volcanic rock, because it's magma that originates in the core, has a certain amount of iron. So they go through the different layers, and in one layer it may be oriented in one direction, and then the next layer up oriented in the opposite direction. Then they surmise a polar flip happened, and because the poles are opposite, that the orientation of the iron within the rocks also goes in an opposite direction. Pretty ingenious, huh? So anyhow, what's the difference between a polar excursion and a full flip? Now, a full polar flip, the North Pole will become the South Pole, basically. That takes thousands of years to happen. It's a gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight. But polar excursions are far more common, about every 80,000 years, roughly, that happens. And what happens with an excursion is that the poles will migrate and migrate a lot, maybe thousands of miles. Sometimes the North Pole will migrate into the southern hemisphere. Sometimes it returns back. But either of these events, what it's going to do basically is during the time of the transition, the poles will become diffuse. It'll be hard to recognize. There may be multiple dipoles also. But in any event, if a pole shift happens, is occurrence for humanity or a polar excursion? Is that the end of humanity? Is that mass extinction? The answer is no. It's happened before. Mass extinction didn't happen. Adaptation did. That's what's going to happen again. Animals will adapt. Humans will adapt. The flips take thousands of years, the migration a mere hundreds of years, and they may be harder to adapt due to the time element of a migration versus a flip. The magnetic field weakens to about 10% of its current value during the process of a flip or a migration. The poles migrate, they become ill-defined. Sometimes multiple poles develop, but that's temporarily before they settle into their new positions. And the consequences on our planet can be severe. Extreme climate change can result from that. Animal migration changes. You know, the migration patterns are based on the Earth magnetism, so as it's changing, it confuses the animals, but they do adapt over time. The Earth adapts, and the Earth becomes subject to higher levels of radiation. But the magnetic field doesn't go to zero, so it's not like we're completely exposed. And besides, so we won't be at the total mercy of the solar wind when that happens. And besides, the Earth's atmosphere is a far greater protective blanket than the magnetic fields anyway. The magnetic field really protects us just from some level of electromagnetic energy, radiation, but it's really the atmosphere that does most of the work anyway. And besides, the Earth's atmosphere protects us significantly more from the solar radiation than our magnetic field. But it will lead to more frequent and stronger auroras. We're starting to see the trend in that direction. So that's another sign. We start to see the weakening of the fields, and the solar winds, the ionic penetration becomes deeper into the atmosphere, so it affects things that way. It affects the technology, it affects levels of radiation, like levels of ultraviolet, and so forth. So part of the adapting is new protective measures are going to be needed to put in place. Protection of technology, protection of our own skin, maybe, protection of the electrical grids, and things of that nature, adapting to the climate changes, stuff like that. Protection of the crops, adapting to the changing climate. Did I just say that? Well, I said it 3 times now in this video, but it will happen. Life on Earth, including humans, will adapt. Part of what we do on the Medium channel as part of the awakening process, try to dispel some of the fake information out there. And if you guys want to help out, please like and hype this video if you're enjoying it, to get it out to more people, because we've got enough to worry about on the earth. We don't need fictitious things. This is just part of nature. And so let me dive into more stuff. There's still so much that's unknown about why we undergo periodic polar shifts and the dynamics of the Earth's magnetic field. I mean, it's explained, like I said before, due to the core of the Earth and the magnetic, iron and everything, and the spinning. But there's still a lot that isn't known. But my feeling is, based on what I know about science, as well as what I'm being told intuitively, is that the changes on the Earth and the Earth's magnetic field begin with the sun. And the sun is energy, it's magnetic, like the Earth's core. And the sun's magnetic field and the Earth's core that creates the Earth's magnetic field couples. So when there's changes happening in the sun, it's going to create changes, corresponding changes within the way the core is structured, the speed of the rotation, the strength of the field, and over time, that's going to affect the Earth's magnetic field. There is a lag between changes of the sun, changes in the Earth's core, and changes within the magnetic field. Just like in the summer, the hottest day of the year is not the summer solstice. It's a month after the solstice, because there's a lag between when the most thermal energy affects the Earth based on when the hottest temperature is. And air is much less dense than liquid iron as well as Earth. So the lag period can be decades even. Changes in the sun may take decades to make changes within the way the magnetic sphere, the core of the Earth, is rotating, the way the oscillations happen. It may pull the iron magnetic core outwards and create more of an oblong shape and more of a gyro effect at certain times than others. So I think you get the idea. So it's very dense matter in the Earth, so it's going to take time for that all to happen. And then, of course, it can take decades more for the changes to show up in the Earth's atmosphere and changes on the Earth itself and how the poles change and shift and so on. So this is an area of science that I'm not sure about, but there is a lag phenomena, like I said before. So the Earth is... Okay, I'm being repetitive here. Let me go down in my notes. So in any event, there will be... To sum things up, there's going to be plenty of time to deal with this, to upgrade the technology, to upgrade our dwellings, to upgrade protection from the sun if we need stronger sunscreens or whatever, to protect the satellites from increased electromagnetic radiation, solar storms, and stuff like that. But it is going to change life as we know it. And so when does all of this mean for 2026? Because it says a psychic forecast for 2026. Well, I think we're going to see the South Atlantic Anomaly, where there's an apparent hole in the electromagnetic fields of the Earth. I think we're going to see that strengthen and enlarge. We're going to see more intense solar activity, especially early in the year, because we are entering a natural descending phase of the solar maximum. We're in solar maximum now, so there's more solar activity, more flares, more coronal mass ejection. And then we have the intersolar system comets with their dusty plasma comas that affect the that are electromagnetic in nature and affect the sun's circuitry and the inner solar circuitry. So that's enhancing right now, because there's 3 or 4 of them in the inner solar system. Then we have the interstellar object 3I Atlas, which is huge and has a huge dusty plasma field that's really affecting, from what I'm seeing, the Earth's magnetic field and the Earth's outputs. It's really affecting the electronics of the sun and the circuitry of the sun and the Earth. So it's really pumping out more solar flares. But 2026, it should start descending. But anyway, some more solar activity, more unexplainable changes in climate and weather that are going to contradict the climate models that are in place right now and leave scientists really scratching their head and updating things. I think we're also going to see an increase in earthquakes and volcanoes, because after all, there's more solar energy that affects the Earth when the fields weaken, and that goes into the Earth. So there's more volatility, and changes within the gyro effect changes the Earth. It creates a shaking in the Earth, which will help to enhance geomagnetic activity, which will also affect the atmosphere and the weather. So more funding. What did I even write here? More funding energy going into the Earth, researching the sun, Earth, and polar shift. I don't even know what I wrote here, but maybe I explained that already. So anyway, the weakening fields allows more light to penetrate that will affect the collective and catalyze changes in consciousness. So it's going to help to catalyze the global awakening, and that's going to start to create changes in the geopolitics, the change of the way people treat each other, and more corruption and stuff like that rising to the surface. It brings new energy, new insights into our collective that helps to enhance new inventions, new electronics, upgrades in technology, and stuff like that, changes in government. And new global climate models will probably come out during the year of 2026. New inventions designed for protecting us, particularly satellites and technology, are likely to start to get proposed and developed this year, and more awareness on just how fragile and precarious our society is, because we dodged such a major bullet. I can't even explain in this video how, if things lined up just a few hours differently, we would have had a geomagnetic storm much greater than what we had, and we may have lost our grid. Our grid is very precarious. These satellites are very vulnerable to solar storms. So I think we are going to see changes of that. And as humanity awakens, I think a lot of people are really going to start to think about moving off grid and moving to more sustainable living, and upgrading their knowledge, doubling down on their spiritual practices, and wishing to grow and develop in a more of an organic, human way, rather than getting so caught up in the programming and the control by technology and stuff of that nature. So anyway, which I could read my writing here. More funding. What did I say? More funding and energy more funding and more funding and energy going into researching the sun, the Earth, and the polar shifts. So that's all that I was trying to say earlier. All right. Anyway, so I've got a lot more information for you. So on this side, we'll just post the forecast for the November 20th for the next month. This video is due to be uploaded on the 19th. And on the other side, we'll talk a little bit more about the spiritual side and the spiritual upgrades from these high-level solar flares that are affecting us, and what we can do to enhance that for our spiritual growth. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll see you at the next video.